Hey, badass business owners. As you know, we have been going over the last few weeks what you should be spending your time on when you're working on your business and not just in your business, especially if you want your business to grow. In our first video, we went over the 3 things that you need to be focusing your time on. Then over the last 2 weeks, we took a deep dive into all of them. And the first one was knowing your business numbers. The second one was you diving into your processes so that you can find ways to make the business grow and to become more profitable. And the third component to that is your team, is your people. Now, even if you do not have people today, you do not have a team, I think it's really important that you continue to learn about this particular stage of you growing your business, because this way you can start putting things in place as you go. Now, whether you have 1 employee or you have 10 or more employees, it's going to be the same thing, because your team is probably the number one thing that is going to help you grow your business, and their success is actually going to be your success. Because if your team is failing, then you're going to fail, because they become an extension of you. Because if you think about it, your team is replacing you in the eyes of the customer in many cases, and they need to be able to trust and get that same exact experience that they would if you were doing the job. And that's where a lot of small business owners get really frustrated, because they're not you and they're never going to be you. Let's rip that Band-Aid off now. Your employees are never going to be you. You might get lucky and find that unicorn who's actually better than you, but in most cases, they're going to be about 80% or 70% of you. Your goal is, how do you get them as close as possible? Remember, you have a passion for this business. It's yours. Your dedication is going to be way higher than what theirs is. Your goal is to make sure that whether they're with you for 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is, that they are in it to win it, because they want to see the business succeed. Now, you noticed I didn't say make you succeed. Now, if they will want to be in it because they want you to succeed, that's even better. But in most cases, what we're shooting for is for them to have a passion for the business's success, because if the business is successful, so are they. So let's talk a little bit about I think it's like 5 things, maybe a 6th one, because there's one that's really important, and I'll put that at the end, because it kind of is you really need to make sure you do this piece, or you keep this in mind. But for now, let's talk about the areas of an employee that you want to spend your time on, because once again, we're talking about what you should be doing when you're working on the business. Now, the first thing is you've got to hire the right people. Plain and simple. I have hired thousands of people through the year, and I can tell you the thing I hate the most is hiring people. But not because of any reason. It has nothing to do with the people. But let's face it, to find the right person, it takes time and energy. And it takes kissing a lot of frogs before you find the right one. Way too often, we're desperate for people and we hire the first person who shows up, especially in a struggling market where it's hard to find people. But it's really important that you get in the habit of hiring before you need somebody. That's the biggest difference. Right now, you're probably hiring as you need somebody. Tommy quits, you need to replace Tommy. That's when we hire. That's why we settle for people, as opposed to saying, I'm looking at my business numbers. Remember, item number one that you're working on, and that is you knowing your business numbers. Your business numbers are going to tell you, hey, you're about to go into season, you need to hire someone. Or I'm looking at my numbers, and if I can get another person in, I can take X amount of money and I can create X amount of sales and profit. Your numbers are going to help you make the decision as to when you should hire this person. Therefore, it gives you time in order to find the right person. So it's very important that you take the time. Now, keep in mind, just because someone has skills, if they have horrible customer service or a lousy attitude, they are not going to help your business. I'd rather take somebody who has a fantastic attitude, amazing people skills, a willingness to learn, great attitude. I'll teach them how to do whatever it is that I need them to do. Unless you have something that's extremely specialized, do not rule out somebody just because they don't have the experience. What you're looking for is who makes the best employee, because you need the complete package. Ideally, you want someone who knows what it is you need them to do and them to have this wonderful attitude. But it doesn't always work that way. So you have to pick the lesser of two evils. If we're really desperate, what's going to end up happening, we're going to take the person who's got the skills, but the really shitty attitude. And then what's going to end up happening is you're going to regret that. Because remember, it only takes one bad employee to ruin all of them, because their attitude is like a cancer and it will go through it, especially if they're not showing up. It makes everybody else go, why am I showing up? I'm working so hard and they're getting paid the same amount of money as I do. So there's so many things that can go wrong with you not dealing with somebody a bad hire. So number one is you need to make sure you hire right. And I'll do some other videos on how to do that. But for now, let's just talk about these items. The second thing you need to do is you need to train them before you throw them into the job. Just because you were thrown to the wolves doesn't mean you throw your employees to the wolves. I have helped coach on this over the last 30 years so much because we think that if we throw someone in, they're going to figure out the job. They're going to figure out how to do the job all right. They're going to figure out how to do it wrong. And they're going to do it half-assed. They're not going to really understand what they're doing. It's very important you have an onboarding process that they learn about your company. They learn about your values. They learn about your expectations. They know exactly what they need to do, and you teach them how to do it. You cannot get mad at somebody for doing a poor job if you never train them properly in the first place. And I can't tell you how often that happens, and it happens way more than it really should. And it's really important that you don't do that to the people on your team. So please make sure that you have an onboarding process and you have a training plan, whether that's you training them or another employee. And by the way, if you have another employee train them, make sure that employee is training them the way that you want to be trained. I can tell you from experience, and I am just as guilty of myself doing this to people. When you've been doing something for a long time, you already teach them the shortcuts and say, hey, you don't have to do it that way. Let me show you the easier way to do it. But that may not be how you want them trained. So please make sure that whoever is doing the training is the person that's going to teach them the way they need to be taught. Then they can earn how to do those shortcuts as they get really good at what it is that they do. So second thing, make sure you have a great training onboarding plan, which leads to the third part is ongoing training. Just because you teach them once or you teach them in the beginning, you need to help these employees grow. You want the employee to stay. Most employees don't quit because of money. Contrary to what everybody thinks, that's lower down on it. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like they're part of the team, and they want to grow. So if you can continue to teach them new skills, that's going to help them grow. Plus, if you think about it, before you give them more money, you want them to grow. You want them to take on more responsibility. The only way they can do that is if you teach them new responsibility. Yes, they need to have a go-getting attitude, but you also need to make sure that you're training them the way that you need to train them for ongoing growth and development. So first thing we want to do is we want to hire the right person. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we train them and onboard them correctly. The third thing was ongoing training, which leads us to the fourth thing that I want to talk about, and that is the fact that you need to make sure that they fully understand what the expectations are and you hold them accountable. A lot of small business owners do not want to hold their team accountable. They don't like confrontation. They don't want to have to do it. But here's the thing. If you set it up for what they should be doing, it's really simple. Did you know what you should do? Well, yes. Did you do what you were supposed to do? Well, no. Then what should I do? I have to hold you accountable for that. It's that simple because it's not you doing it. They did it to themselves. And the minute you make that mindset and they have clear expectations, where you get into trouble is when you sit back, they don't do what they should do, but you can realize that when you sit down, it's like you didn't tell them. You didn't make sure they understood the expectations. No wonder why they messed up. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And by the way, the minute you start letting them get away with stuff, you keep moving that line. Because if you draw the line that you can't do this and you're like, you let them do it and you don't say anything, they just said, oh, okay, I can push that line. I can go a little bit further. Just like a kid does, right? When you have children, they do the exact same things. They test and they see how far they can go outside of those lines. Your employees are going to be no different after all. They are just kids that have grown up. And some have never grown up, by the way. But it's really important that you have clear expectations. You teach them exactly what it is that you need them to do, and you hold them accountable to those because you cannot get mad at them if they're doing exactly what you've allowed them to get away with. And the first person you have to look in the mirror is yourself. A lot of times people don't realize the reason you churn and burn through people, part of the reason why people don't want to stay with you is the person in the mirror, and it is you. And this accountability piece is a huge piece of it. Now, there's a fifth thing that I want to talk about, and that is succession planning. And basically, this is where you sit back and you say, okay, right now I have one team, but I think I can grow the business by starting doing this or having a second crew or doing whatever. But what happens is by the time we need that second crew, we didn't do any succession planning. And what succession planning is the fact that you start saying at some point in the future, soon, I plan to have a second crew. I need to identify somebody and I need to start prepping them and giving them the tools that they need to be able to step up into that leadership role for the person that I need to run that second team. So succession planning is something really easy, especially at your stage, is who's going to do it. And by the way, you can have one person and still have some succession planning to do. For example, I was talking to a business owner last week. He's got this guy that is his only team member. He's awesome. He's wonderful. But we started talking about this gentleman expanding his team, and he wants to set up an entire crew. But he doesn't necessarily want to manage the crew. Well, he's got this amazing guy who's just as good, if not better than him. What a perfect opportunity to train him now for that succession planning, to take over that crew and what those expectations are, to get him involved in the numbers, to start understanding them, and to go over what the expectations would be of him as a crew leader, and coming up with how is he going to train the crew that he does hire, stuff like that. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do from a succession planning standpoint. So it's really important that you do that as well. All of this stuff that we're talking about today is what you should be working on when you're working on your business and you're dealing with that third bucket of teaching people and your team and stuff like that. Now, there's a sixth item I want to talk about, which ties into this, and that has to do with pay, specifically your pay. And here's why. One of the reasons why a lot of small business owners don't do so well when they start hiring people is because they forget to look at the pay side. Remember, I've told you, you need to pay yourself two ways in your business. One is as the employee doing the work in your business, and the second is as the business owner. When you start hiring someone, they are replacing you as the employee in some cases. And if you are not properly doing your business numbers and making sure you account for your labor hours for the employee stuff that you do, the minute you hire somebody, all of a sudden your profitability goes down. And the reason is because you're trying to hold on to that employee money that you're no longer the employee of. That employee money is going to the other person that you hired. So it's important that if you bring someone on, you have to realize that your employee money should go down, but your business profit should be going up if you've done it right. So this pay, let's say it's $10 over here and $10 over here, and you hire somebody, this $10 will go away, but your profit should be going up to $20. Hope that makes sense for you, because it's really important that this is why those business numbers are really going to help you understand, I want to hire somebody, this is what needs to happen because I'm going to lose this pay and I'm going to gain this pay. So if you like what I'm laying down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that like button, by the way, because it's going to help me make this channel even better for you guys. But once again, you want to hire the best. You want to make sure you train them from the get-go. You want to make sure that you have ongoing training for them, that you have accountability and expectations with them, that you are doing some succession planning, and you're making sure that pay is right. There's all kinds of great stuff in there. And if you want to learn even more about things that'll help your business, make sure you check out these videos. And by the way, go back and look at the entire series. I think it's going to help you if you're really ready to start diving in to understanding how to grow your business and the things that you should be focusing your time and energy on. And I'll talk to you on the next video. See you next time.